H.R. 1319 has passed the House and is now on the way to the Senate. This is the $1.9 trillion stimulus bill that's also known as the American Rescue Plan of 2021. Now, this is a very important bill because this is actually what was promised by Biden to happen within the first week. And I was critical of him, like everyone should have, as it has been over a month since this has happened. Now, finally, it is passed the House and it's on the way to the Senate. However, what's interesting about this that everyone needs to take a note of is that it passed almost exclusively down party lines. In fact, not a single Republican voted for this bill. So as you can see here, this is the breakdown. We have 51% yay, 49% nay, which is just about down party lines. We only had 2 Democrats who voted against this, and we had 1 Republican who did not vote at all. So let's go ahead and just take a look down the breakdown to see exactly who decided to change their mind. And it looks like we have Representative Jared Golden and Kurt, whatever that last name is, who is from Oregon. And they are the Democrats who decided to vote against this. And if you live in these districts, how about you keep this in mind the next term these guys are up for re-election. Now, there's 3 major things in the bill that are notable. Now, first is that you got the overall package price of $1.9 trillion. So that's going to be the overall cost of this. All right. Now, the first thing in there that's very important is the checks. Now, Biden promised $2,000 checks and then backed off to $1,400 because we already got $600 from Trump earlier. So that together makes $2,000, which is a lying, sleazy move because that's what he used to win the election, especially the Georgia special elections. They were won because the Democrats promised those $2,000 checks. But we'll put that off to the side, okay, for another day. And let's just make the note, all right? So the first thing is $1,400 checks, and those are going out to Americans who make $75,000 a year or less. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I believe that means testing is just not good with these stimulus checks. You give them to everybody. And the question is, well, what about the people who shouldn't deserve these checks? Well, guess what? You can just tax them back later. It's that simple, but you don't waste time trying to means test and then slow down the process of getting them out. You get these checks to everyone, and then later on, you can just tax them back from the people who didn't deserve to get the checks, all right? So that's the first thing in here. The second thing in here is extending the unemployment increase to $400 a month. And that extension is really important because the current extension for unemployment actually expires mid-March. So they pretty much have like 2 weeks to get this through the Senate and passed. And then finally, the third thing in there is a $15 minimum wage increase. I'm 100% on board with those first 2 parts of the bill. What I'm not on board with, though, is the $15 minimum wage tied to inflation, okay? And let me tell you why. The reason for this is that the idea is that you'd set this as the minimum wage because then it's a living wage. Well, in the United States, we are such a large country with many different states and many different counties within those states, each of which have a different living wage. All right. So if you go ahead and you take a look at a place like Minnesota, okay, the living wage in Minnesota kind of ranges between, $13 and $14, depending on the county you're living in. All right. Now, if you go ahead and you take a state like California, LA County, the living wage is like $19.35 an hour. All right. So we're talking massive difference between my state of Minnesota and the state of California in the Los Angeles County. All right. So what does that mean? If you've got a flat $15 minimum wage, it means that businesses in Minnesota are going to be paying about $1 more an hour than what a living wage would be, which becomes an additional expense on businesses. That's a hardship, especially on smaller businesses. But then you go to a place like LA County and you're still, $4, $4.50, under a living wage. So that's not going to help the poverty line or the low income workers in that county. So because there's such variation, having a flat $15 minimum wage is too much in some places, too little in other places, and way too little in some other places. So what we have to do is we have to take a minimum wage and you tie it to the cost of living per county. All right, that's what you got to do. And you start this off over a period of 3 years is how you extend this over. All right, because then you've got single digit increases in terms of wages year over year. So it's not a massive increase. It's still an increase to a living wage, but needless to say, the $15 an hour is a mistake. So why did all these Republicans vote against it? Right now, there's two reasons that I'm going to say, and we're going to find out. I'm going to see if I can get my representative on the phone here in just a moment. I don't know if I will be able to, but we'll see what happens. So why did they vote against it? Well, first of all, they're going to say $1.9 trillion. We don't have that money. That is so much money. All right. And to that, I'm going to say, well, what about the $9 trillion that you decided to spend in 2020? No one questioned any of that money. Oh, where's that money going to come from, right? No one made any questions there. And the reason no one made any questions is because they all knew that that $9 trillion was not a problem. They knew that they could get that money. And eventually I'll make a video about modern monetary theory to kind of go over how we can have that kind of money in the country. But needless to say, we are the richest country on the planet, and yet we can't afford stimulus checks for the American people. Yeah, that's pretty ridiculous. So that's the first thing they're going to say. And the second thing they're going to say is what I disagree with, which is the $15 minimum wage. Now, here's the thing about that. That part of the bill is not going to get passed anyway, all right? The $15 minimum wage part of this bill has to be passed by 60 votes in the Senate, all right? Which isn't going to happen. They're not going to get 60 votes in the Senate. So that part of the bill is just dead in the water already. They're going to take that out because it's not going to pass. So the only complaint left is the $1.9 trillion, which isn't anything anyway. Now, let's talk about snubbing your voter base, okay? 60% of Republicans are on board with this bill. It's over 80% with Democrats, but Republican voters, all right, these representatives, voter base, who they are supposed to represent, 60% of them want this bill. They approve of this bill, and yet they just snubbed their entire voter base. So let's go ahead and see. Like I said, I don't know what's going to happen when I make this call, but let's go ahead and see exactly how this is going. So,
Hagerman's office.
Hi, I was wondering if Jim is either there or if I could leave a message or get in touch with someone. I've just got some questions about the bill that he voted on this last weekend.
Okay, sure. What are your questions, sir?
So I was just wondering, because I know that, and so I have voted for him. I did this last election and before, and I've been supportive of him. But myself, as well as a lot of people I know, are really hoping that he was going to vote in favor of this stimulus plan, and he voted against it. So I'm just kind of wondering why with this he chose to vote kind of against what myself, as well as most people I know, kind of really wanted him to vote for. So I'm just wondering, since, he represents us, it's a fair question, I think.
Okay, sure, no problem. I'm happy to check on that for you, and I'll get that question over to our staff member that can help you with that. Could I get your name and your email address and phone number?
Yes. I'll keep you guys posted on what response I get, but I just think it's pretty ridiculous, and this just shows how these people you vote for, these representatives, because I can bash on Democrats all I want all day long because they are a bunch of corporate sleazebags, but I can tell you for a fact the Republicans are not representing their people on this one. So I'm just very disappointed, and we're going to see what happens, because it's not just a lack of a stimulus check, but these unemployment benefits are going to expire, and those are so important that it's really a shame, because you just have to look at what other countries are doing to help their people, and the U.S. is just falling well behind what they should have been doing from the beginning. If you're still sticking around, it means you probably heard something you liked. So please support the channel by clicking that subscribe button and thumbs upping this video. And if you really didn't like this video, thumbs down it twice.